again, everyone. Welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, finally back ready to talk some David Lynch. It's been a while. We've been off, and I'm here with my co-host, my wonderful co-host, Xan Sprouse, who's back from sunny Romania. Welcome back, Xan, to the United States.
Charles. Thank you very much. Yes, I was in Romania, the home of Vlad the Impaler.
Excellent.
And yeah, and I've got to tell you a quick story, Charles. Europe thinks Americans are idiots.
I know.
And I'll tell you how I found this out. Vlad the Impaler is sort of seen in Romania as kind of a national hero, because the people he impaled were the people trying to invade Romania. So
right. He was a badass warlord.
He was a badass warlord, and he kept the Turks out of Wallachia. Yeah. And remember, Romania has been a country the way we know it for like 102 years, and that's all. I mean, Romania is a very, very new country. And back in his time, there were three parts of it. There was Wallachia in the south, Transylvania in the west, and Moldavia in the east. And he was like the Prince of Wallachia, and he was sort of the Theon Greyjoy to the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, to his Ned Stark.
Hopefully without the castration.
Without the castration, but he was sort of the, I'm going to send you my son as a hostage. You're going to raise him, and then we're going to be friends.
Exactly.
But they sent him there when he was about 10, and so he just kind of Count of Monte Cristo'd in his brain his whole time that he was growing up. And when it came time for him to be the ruler of Wallachia, the Sultan said, "Hey, yeah, you're like my son. You're going to be my friend." And he said, "By the way, Dad." And he kind of pulled a Charles Foster Kane on him.
Okay.
And just, stopped him at every pass and everything like that. So he's sort of seen as a Romanian folk hero. So every single tour that we took, even though it wasn't the Dracula tour, Dracula, air quotes, Dracula's castle is Bran Castle in Brasov, which is actually it's more of a military fortress, but it's the closest thing to looking like what Bram Stoker described as Dracula's castle.
Right.
So that's why they have tours there and things like that. It also looks a lot like the way it's up on the hill. It kind of looks like, Victor Frankenstein's castle. But anyway.
So there's obviously no Castle Dracul or something to that effect.
No, that's the thing. I mean, he had residences, but they didn't, in Wallachia, a lot of it's interesting when you see a lot of these older castles. They're very, very modest. They can be very ornate, but they're very, very small.
Right.
But the on top of the hill and the town below and that all that stuff is what made it. That's what Bram Stoker based it off of. So that's why that is. But yeah, he never lived there.
Just the general look and atmosphere.
The general look and atmosphere, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So every single tour guide would mention Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes or Vlad Dracula, which is the son of Dracul, and Vlad Dracul was his father. And they would always end it with, or preface it with, "Now you right?"
You might want to say that again, because the audio Skype was glitching up.
Skype, okay.
The Skype is glitching.
The Skype is glitching.
The Skype is glitching.
I have powers. They would preface everything they would talk about when they would talk about Dracula. Now, you know that Dracula is not real, right?
Last time I checked.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to know who flies, and this could be Europe too, or Asia. There were a lot of Asian tourists. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of German tourists. There were a lot of French tourists, and there were a lot of British tourists. And it could be that, but I'm just thinking, who flies from America to Romania, loving Dracula so much that they want to visit Bran Castle yet they don't know Dracula's not real. Like, who is, like, when does this happen?
I can answer that question in 2 words.
What's that?
Goth kids.
But goth kids know who Vlad the Impaler is. You know, when I was a kid.
Yeah, but they probably buy into the whole thing that it's real.
Okay, I think if they go to New Orleans, they probably
the vampire wannabe. I should say more like the vampire kids, more than the goth kids. Because to use the South Park distinction.
Right. I went to school with a ton of goth kids, but we were also nerds, and we read a ton of stuff, so we knew who Vlad the Impaler was. Yeah. We knew all of that stuff.
All the vampire kids that go to Hot Topic,
okay, maybe
burn down Hot Topic. Yeah,
the non-reader vampire kids. But I was like, oh my God, I thought that was crazy. So, and seriously, it was every single tour guide.
Right.
And I wish we had been with a tour that was, when they said, now, of course, Dracula is not real, and somebody was there going, just like you told them Santa Claus wasn't real or something.
Right.
So then the last day we were there, Bucharest has they call it a village museum, and it's kind of like Ohio Village, for those of you in the Columbus area, where they have, and unlike Ohio Village, they're not replicas, they're actual houses that they have brought from the countryside, from all the regions of Romania, and they show you what life was like back in the day, and you can walk through it, and they give you history and things like that. Well, Wallachia, because it's right by the southern border of the Ottoman Empire, they have a lot of houses that are half in the ground, because it helps with the temperature, because it's cold in the winter and it's really hot in the summer. So if you have that half in the ground house, your summers are cooler and your winters are a little more insulated.
Makes sense.
But if your houses are lower, when the Turks are invading, they can't necessarily see your village. Okay? So that was part of why they did it.
From a distance.
From a distance, exactly. Yeah. They don't necessarily, they're not going to always go.
They wouldn't like immediately like, oh, there's a city, let's go pillage it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there are these half in the ground wooden houses, sometimes thatched roofs.
Right.
And I look at them and I think I said to my tour guide, I said, oh, that is so cool. That's kind of like a Hobbit house. And she looks at me in all seriousness and says, yes, but these were real people. And I was like, first of all,
shut down.
First of all, even if I did think hobbits were real,
right?
We're not in New Zealand,
right?
That's where hobbits are. I was like, I looked at her. I was like, I know. I'm just saying that as they're described in the books, they kind of seem like this.
You're probably like the 500th person that made that reference. And then the tour guide just snaps.
But am I the first person to know that hobbits aren't real? I mean, it was just, but yeah, they kind of think we're morons, which is kind of.
Well, yeah, just look at our political leaders at the moment. I think that's fair.
That's when I've talked to people.
We used to have a decent reputation once upon a time.
But see, when I've talked to people from Europe, they are sort of like, oh, this is your first fascist. You'll get through it. We all get through it. And so there's not that, but I feel like this is sort of like this systematic years and years and years of Americans just not knowing what the hell's going on. So it was very funny. I was with my mom, and I just looked at her at the end of the night one night, and I'm like, everybody feels the need to tell us that Dracula's not real. Like, oh my God. So funny.
That is
funny.
But
yeah. Yeah, so if you go to Europe and you go on a tour, don't be surprised if they expect very little of you.
That's encouraging. So,
yeah.
All right. So before we get too deep into the travel adventures of Xan,
that's all I wanted to tell you was that Europe thinks Americans are morons.
I think that's a great story, though. That's awesome. I think that was what I was hoping I was going to get tonight. I got that out of you. I'm pleased. So, yeah. All right. So to get kind of focused on back where we were, because we do tend to digress just a wee bit sometimes. Here at episode 56, we are going to talk at long last. We've been trying this for a while. We're going to talk Blue Velvet, the new Criterion Collection edition Blu-ray.
Yes.
that just came out back on May 28th, 2019. So a few weeks we've been trying to get to this. Obviously based, the new release of the classic 1986 film Blue Velvet that came out, the neo-noir mystery film, written and directed, of course, by David Lynch. That, hey, got him a Best Director nomination.
Yes, it did.
That thing, that was first, and so that was kind of a big deal, which I actually have some Oscar news about David Lynch that I should probably talk about. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Which is so exciting. And
you want to talk about that before we get going?
We might as well, because
since I brought it up.
Good segue. Yeah, good segue.
All right. So, everybody, so you probably, if you follow us on Ghostwood, which hopefully you do, we kind of shared this news that David Lynch is going to receive an honorary Oscar at long last. Yeah. Way overdue, obviously.
Yeah.
So apparently, along with actors Wes Studi and Gina Davis and director Lena Wertmuller, David Lynch is one of the winners of the 11th Annual Governors Awards, voted by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences Board of Governors, hence Governors Awards.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And apparently they're going to be presented at the Academy's 11th Annual Governors Awards on Sunday, October 27th. And Lynch, of course, is a 4-time Oscar nominee, but never a winner. With
always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Pretty much, because Academy voters suck. And with 3 of those nominations coming in the Best Director category... Go ahead. You were going to go off on a good rant there.
I just think they play... No, I was just going to say, I think they play it safe too much, is the big problem. I remember... the 1995 Oscars that were picking movies from the year 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what else was up, but Best Picture nominations included Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction.
Right.
And people would ask me, what do you think is going to win Best Picture? And I said, okay, well, what do I want to win Best Picture, or what do I think will win Best Picture? And...
I was rooting for Pulp Fiction, but...
I was rooting for Pulp Fiction, but I knew it was going to be...
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Because it's a more mainstream film.
It's just a safer film. It's just a safer movie. And I think that they tend to do that sometimes. Now, they didn't do that a couple years ago with Moonlight. I think they're starting to pick a little bit more...
Well, they have to kind of they're weeding out the older Academy voters that aren't open to that kind of thing, and they're just starting to creep in some new blood.
They're pushing the envelope a little bit more, which I think is great, but they've always played it very, very safe. And this is not to say that there's anything wrong with Forrest Gump. I mean, Forrest Gump is an entertaining movie, and it had some wonderful special effects, which is something I want to talk about Blue Velvet, Charles, is special effects. But yeah, what else was up in, let's take a look and see.
Let's travel back in time. Doodly 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 doodly.
Doodly 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 doodly. Yeah, that's a dream. That's not time travel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
all right, it's more... Well, time travel, obviously, is more... Diddly-dum, 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 diddly-dum. Yeah.
All right. So, here is what was up for Best Picture in 1986.
Yes.
It's giving me the... No, I'm sorry.
Bueller.
I'm giving me the wrong ones. I'm trying to get the awards winners for 1986, but it's giving me the awards ceremony that aired in 1986, which was in 1985.
Look up the word 1986 Oscar nominees, Best Picture.
Well, I found it. I just had the wrong year.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So, who was up for Best Director? Was David Lynch,
obviously,
for Blue Velvet. Woody Allen for Hannah and Her Sisters, Roland Jaffe for The Mission, and James Ivory for A Room with a View from Merchant Ivory.
Right.
And Oliver Stone is who won for Platoon.
Right.
And Platoon won Best Picture, things like that, where it's just sort of and
that was a pretty widely received movie.
It was a very widely received movie, and it was a period piece. And, Room with a View won a couple of, it won Best Adapted Screenplay, things like that. Supporting actor, supporting actress, and original screenplay were all for Hannah and Her Sisters. That was the year Marlee Matlin won for Children of a Lesser God. Just sort of these sort of serious dramas, period pictures, tear-jerkers. That's the kind of stuff that wins Oscars.
Exactly. It's essentially what I like to call Oscar bait.
Oscar bait.
Usually with movies about people with some kind of physical or mental impairment that they have to overcome, or that that's playing someone with a some kind of struggle as far as society, like they're either gay, they're black, etc. That they have to overcome.
It's always dramas, and it is always.
And they love period films, like you said.
Yeah, it's always dramas. They love period films. They love tearjerkers.
Right.
They love historical dramas, things like that. And
they don't love things like Blue Velvet or Twin Peaks.
No, they don't love things like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks. They love them enough to nominate them. And sometimes what I consider the conciliatory Oscar is Best Screenplay. And that's when you see movies that should win Best Picture but aren't gonna because they're too edgy. Something like The Usual Suspects won Best Screenplay, that kind of stuff. And then we have years where things are just really, really shocking, like Silence of the Lambs. When does a horror movie win Oscars? Literally never, except for that.
What about The Shining?
No Oscars.
No Oscars for okay.
Pretty sure no Oscars for The Shining.
That's all right. But in addition, of course, to Blue Velvet, Lynch was nominated. I just want to mention this real quick, that he was nominated for The Elephant Man and Mulholland Drive as director, and then also got nominated for adapted screenplay for Elephant Man.
Yeah, he's been nominated a lot of times, and David Lynch is an incredibly creative and wonderful filmmaker, even though he has this reputation for being kind of a weirdo.
Right.
He's really not that bizarre. And that's something I want to get into when we start talking about some of the deleted scenes from Blue Velvet. He's weird in a very banal, mundane sense.
Right.
So
it's not like it's not like he has this reputation for being really perverted, or that or just a hothead, or difficult to work with. It's more that the fact that the reputation that essentially David Lynch kind of lives in his dream world, and he's the artiste.
Right. But there's not. He's not as inaccessible as people give him credit for, or don't give him credit for. So
I think it's just the fact that he makes these very surreal movies at times that people automatically think, well, that's how he is in real life. He's not capable of just having an imagination about it.
Exactly. And that was one thing, Charles, when you and I went to go see The Elephant Man at Studio 35, the little kid who shoots him in the eye with a pea shooter in the train station lives in Columbus now, and he was there, and he said the first thing everyone asks him is, how weird is David Lynch? And as though David Lynch has absolutely no creativity,
Yeah.
And only puts on film his weird life, and that's just not how things are. So I think people say the same thing. People ask the same questions about Alan Moore. How weird is Alan Moore? It's like, he's not. He was a stay-at-home dad writer. He's a creative man, but he's not a weirdo. And that's, I think, what this Governor's Award is showing, that people finally realize that David Lynch has made incredible contributions to the world of filmmaking, even though it isn't the world's most accessible storytelling. What he's done is very memorable and very, very well done, and I think he deserves the recognition for that.
Well, I think he's getting, basically, I think the way I see it is that he's getting recognized because he's an innovative filmmaker.
Exactly.
He's not the type that he's the one pushing the boundaries of what's considered art in film.
Right.
He's the one taking things in different directions. He's going outside the mainstream. And it's great to see the Academy finally recognizing someone capable of doing that.
Exactly. And I think there are a lot of directors like that. But again, I've said this 100 times, and I'll say it again, that we wouldn't have the directors we have that are in that same vein as David Lynch if we hadn't had David Lynch.
Right.
If we hadn't had, you've heard me say a million times on this podcast that if we hadn't had Twin Peaks, we would not have 80% of the television we have today.
Yeah.
Because David Lynch proved that people will stick to things that are a little outside of a comfort zone and that are a little outside the norm. Yeah. And, any sort of, Charles, you and I, before we started recording, we're talking about What We Do in the Shadows. That sort of weird show. There wouldn't be a show like that if there hadn't been a Twin Peaks.
No. And it's kind of great to be talking about this movie, and it's probably one of the reasons why we keep going back to this movie, is because without this movie, we probably wouldn't have had Twin Peaks.
Absolutely not. And
because
I think
this is like the prototype, and we've talked about this, of Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely the prototype of Twin Peaks. The fact that it's a Lumberton is a lumber town.
Right.
There's a lot of things about this that are the prototype.
You could easily see a Packard sawmill branch in Lumberton, right?
Absolutely. Even down to the jerk-faced boyfriend named Mike who plays football.
Yeah. And there's also a Bob in this movie, as it turns out, when we watch the deleted scenes. Which I'm glad you caught. I wasn't the only one who caught that.
Which is awesome. So there's so much about this that is, and I think with Blue Velvet, is this is a good segue for us to start talking about Blue Velvet.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody else is eager for us to start talking about it too.
Yeah, when are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
Get on with it.
Get on with it. Yeah. So, with this movie, and I think David Lynch also reminds us that small towns are weird, man.
Oh, remember, I grew up in a small town. I can testify to this.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, small towns are not what they project on their postcards.
No.
Weird things go on, seedy things go on, as they talk about in the documentary where they have all of the, the second unit director people and the props people that, they went to seedy parts of Wilmington,
right,
North Carolina, to find this stuff. This stuff exists in small towns. Charles, us being from Ohio and living probably about an hour outside of Xenia, Ohio, small towns do not always have good stuff going on in them. They are not all 4th of July parades,
no,
high baking contests and Miss Auto Show competitions, and they're not all-star quarterback high school players either. And that's one of the best things that David Lynch has done in his storytelling, because David Lynch being from Missoula, Montana. and this talks about it in the booklet that comes with this DVD, that he and his brothers one day saw a naked woman walking up the street. And that's where Dorothy Vallens coming to Jeffrey's house naked, that's where that comes from.
Right.
This is not as weirdo David Lynch mind that people think it is. I mean,
no, as a writer, I know that you basically you write what you know. You write your experiences, and you can adapt them as you see fit. And that's what David Lynch did there with that scene, was that he took that memory that obviously is, especially if he's younger,
right,
is pretty firmly cemented in his brain, and he put that up on the screen for everybody to share with everybody.
And it just shows that there's an underbelly to a small town.
Yep.
And it's not as David Lynch weird as you think. I mean, this kind of stuff happens. So
in a town like Lumberton, no one is safe.
No one is innocent.
That's it. No one is innocent. Yes, thank you. You knew where I was going with that.
I knew exactly where you're going with that one. So, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like I'm sure that Twin Peaks is not the only town in the history of small towns that has a cocaine addicted homecoming queen.
Yeah.
That's not that far of a stretch when you really think about it. When you really take a look at things, it's really not that. It's not something we want to admit, and it's not the image that we want to project. But it's the truth. It's the case.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's this film that actually probably helped Lynch figure out the most of what where his specialty lied. Was
yes,
Americana. Coming. Him growing up in the 50s. Where everything's all bright and clean and whatnot, but Lynch has this interest in okay, let's look under this rock, and what's under this rock,
right,
and what's going to crawl out, and what's secretly hiding in the shadows.
And if you think about the 1950s, there's
that contrast.
There's a contrast. There's a couple of versions of the 1950s. There's the 1950s, the Eisenhower 1950s that we all like to remember.
Yeah, the Howdy Doody era, all that, yeah.
Right, exactly. The Howdy Doody, the Donna Reed, the Leave It to Beaver. There's that kind of 50s where nobody locked their doors and everyone was, all that kind of stuff.
Women in big pleated skirts and, yeah.
With the poodle skirts.
Yep.
The
guys, all the guys that smoked pipes and wore suits, and yes,
exactly. And all the kids went down to the malt shop after school, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
there's that 1950s, but then there's also the 1950s of no coloreds. There's the 1950s of McCarthyism.
Yeah,
there's the 1950s of
Frederick Wortham,
the Cold, and Frederick Wortham. There's the 1950s of the Cold War. There's that intolerant 1950s.
Yes.
But
Fifth Column.
There's also there's also the 1950s of Betty Page and Jean Bilbrough and all of that, Bizarre Magazine and things like that. That sort of
risque.
Charles Moulton, that 1950s that, Charles Moulton was a little before that, but
yeah. Yeah,
but that's sort of,
for those who don't know, that's the guy that created Wonder Woman, by the way.
Yes, it's
William Charles Moulton. Yeah,
and there's a 1950s and there's an upside down 1950s.
Basically, it's like if you watch the show Stranger Things, it's like the upside down.
Right. And
it's there, but it's like kind of hidden from view.
Right, but it's there, and everybody kind of knows it's there. I mean, it's kind of also like Derry, Derry, Maine, where everybody knows horrible shit's going on, but nobody talks about it. We just sort of turn a blind eye to it. And I think David Lynch does a fantastic job of integrating those different elements of nostalgia, Americana, small town, where you have the Jeffrey Beaumont. Jeffrey Beaumont, college kid, Dad owns the hardware store. White picket fence.
And that's in the opening shot right there. That because Lynch makes a point of this of showing like a red, white, and a blue.
The red flower, the white.
The red flower, the white. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's like again pure Americana that he's projecting. Right.
And then you have Sandy Williams and her parents. Her dad is the cop, and her boyfriend is Mike, the quarterback. This whole
they're a sweet, wholesome family, and yeah, they they have people over for dinner, and Sandy has her boyfriend and whatnot, and
right,
yeah.
But even with that sort of situation,
who's a football player?
Yes, he's the football player who I wonder if he has some sort of. We can talk about that with deleted scenes, but anyway,
we need to get there. I know.
But then you have the Slow Club. Also, there's the Slow Club. There's Dorothy Vallens. There's Frank Booth and his gang of flunkies, and then there's the Yellow Man, who is a cop. I mean, you have Chads. Small towns have Chads.
Exactly. He's probably related to Chad. He's probably like
Chad, like grandfather or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Grandpa Chad.
Grandpa Chad, exactly. So there's a lot of stuff going on in a small town, and David Lynch does a great job of meshing that, but he also adds in the banality of small town life. That whole, can I borrow the car? Sure. Mm-hmm. Don't go to Lincoln, but the two women just sitting watching television, the slowness of a small town, the banality of life, just life in general. I mean, life can have a banality, even if you're not living some sort of jet set life. There are days when you're just washing dishes. There are days when you're just watering the lawn. And that's when you have your heart attack.
Exactly.
But still, I mean, that's the thing. There is a slowness and a banality to life in general, and David Lynch does a fantastic job of mixing all that stuff together. And even though sometimes I think he goes on a little too long with it, like when I watch those deleted scenes, there's only a couple that I kind of wish were in the movie.
Right. And we'll talk about those.
Yeah, exactly. But I think,
you could understand why they were cut.
You totally get why they were cut. They were cool, but you totally get why they were cut. And, or even when you go over to Ben's house, where Ben just is hanging out. These are just people that are just drunk or high, just sitting around their house, which, I don't know about you, Charles, but I knew a lot of people in college who just did that. It's like, just come over and we'll get high. It's like, all right, fine. Can we maybe order pizza or watch a movie? I mean, I'm a little bored here, but, he does a fantastic job of mixing that together.
Yep. And
Blue Velvet, I think he really did sort of find his feet with it, because, David Lynch obviously can do anything, personally, I like Dune. I can't help it. I like it.
I'm right here with you. I'm a big Dune supporter.
Yeah.
Even though, he talks about how Dune was such a failure, and then what kind of, this was kind of his rebound movie from Dune. But I like Dune. But it's also,
Dune has its problems, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
And there's there's of course Eraserhead, which is like a stream of consciousness type of a film. It's not supposed to be linear. But then there's The Elephant Man, which is a historical drama that is beautiful and wonderful and fabulous performances. And yeah, he can do anything, but I think this is really his forte.
Yeah.
This type of thing. And I don't mean to pigeonhole him, and I don't mean to, because even when you have
I don't think anybody's capable of pigeonholing David Lynch.
True. Even when you have something like a Lost Highway.
Yeah.
Where they're not in a small town, they're in Los Angeles, they're, kind of Hollywood people.
Right.
They still have this sort of...
Or Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, this is what we show you, but this is what's really going on.
Yeah. There's always a darkness somewhere to be found.
Exactly.
Among the glitz and the glamour.
Right. And, you might be going to all the right parties and meeting all the right people and doing all the right things, but Robert Blake is going to come up to you at a party and it's going to be bad. And, or when you think about just, somebody as living just a ordinary life that Balthazar Getty is living, at home with Gary Busey and his girlfriend, Natasha Gregson Wagner, and all of a sudden he wakes up and he's some other guy in a prison. And how the hell did that happen? So,
because it happens.
Yeah, because like it does,
Yeah.
So,
or Naomi Watts waking up to find out she's somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's
after looking in a box.
Looking in a box. Yeah.
Yep.
It's very Twin Peaksy outside right now, Charles.
Yeah, is it? I can't because you have a window.
Yeah, I have a window.
You have a window. I don't. I'm here in the basement of solitude. Yep, it does.
You're in the windowless void of solitude.
I am in the windowless void of solitude. Although now I'm amongst the trees in my reflection. Ooh.
The trees are very. It's very windy outside.
It is. It's like Ghostwood here.
It's like Ghostwood in here.
Yep. All right. So you ready to run this Criterion version down?
Yes. Let's start it up.
All right.
Let's start it up. Let's talk
okay. So we've already talked the film when back in episode 32, way back on April 12th, 2018. If anyone wants to kind of know our thoughts about the film the actual storyline. So
spoiler alert, we love it.
We love the film, obviously. We're going to talk about the film, but we're not going to go into obviously the plot point by plot point detail because hey, we already talked about that. You can go back to episode 32 if you want that. That's like supplemental material to this. Mm-hmm. We figured that you would probably rather talk about the new stuff that hasn't been released. And obviously, so that of course includes like all the deleted scenes that we're just talking about, all the extra documentaries and whatnot. The booklet that has all kinds of interesting information in it. We'll talk about that. I thought
there's like a good 4 hours of extra stuff.
Yeah,
on here.
so it's. I'm guessing you probably everyone out there listening to this probably does not want to sit through 4 hours of us. Because, hey...
Why would you sit through 4 hours of us when you can sit through 4 hours of supplemental features on the Criterion Blu-ray of Blue Velvet?
So what we're Go ahead.
If you're even the remotest fan of this movie, you need to buy this Blu-ray.
Yeah.
You need to get it.
It is because, and I'm comparing it to... See, I'm personally comparing it to this 2005 DVD release. Mm-hmm. That's what I had until 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And I'm really glad that I upgraded. Although there are some similarities in the DVD, and there's a lot of differences, obviously. Mm-hmm. There's some features on the DVD that were not carried over to the Blu-ray.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep both of them.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Because now there's a couple ones. You're probably obviously going to go to the Blu-ray more. But every so often you might want to crack open the DVD for a couple of the special features.
Agreed. Yep.
So I thought I'd run those down really quickly. So in the 2005 DVD release, obviously, it's just one disc. In my opinion, I like the main menu better because it's easier and more accessible.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for like the drop downs.
Gotcha.
Screens. I like everything right there. That's just me personally. And of course, the 2005 version, you can go through scene selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this doesn't really have scene selection, does it?
Yeah, and I found out why. Apparently, it was specially requested by David Lynch to not have scene selection.
That is correct.
Which is why we did not have that on when we talked about our Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me Blu-ray.
That's right.
Yep.
Director approved, baby.
The director approved special edition. Yes.
Yes.
So apparently for whatever reason Lynch does not like scene selection. I do. I like to be able to go like to a scene, and I don't have to want to fast forward through half the movie to get to it.
No, that's true. That I can see that.
So
but at the same time, I
kind of had take issue with it a little bit.
What I think is funny is that we sort of make fun of cheap DVDs where the only special feature is scene selection.
Right.
And now we're sort of giving a hard time to this wonderful Criterion DVD where the only special feature that isn't there is scene selection.
One of the ones that you want.
Yeah.
It's not
I get it though, because usually when the scene selections are chosen, they're not necessarily chosen by the director as where the director would consider it to be a beat.
Right, a break.
And,
yeah.
And they're not necessarily, because they all have little names, like...
Well, I mean, you could just number them scene 1, scene 2.
But they usually have little names like Finding the Ear, or...
right.
I'm just trying, Heineken, or
something cutesy,
something cutesy like that.
Yeah.
And I can also understand the director being like, "You're supposed to just watch this movie. You're supposed to just watch it."
Yeah.
And so I get that, and I respect David Lynch, so I'm fine with this.
Yeah. One of the big differences does not carry over this great featurette from the DVD Siskel and Ebert at the Movies from 1986.
Which I think is very cool, and I loved Siskel and Ebert, frankly.
With Roger Ebert really not liking this movie.
Every once in a while, Roger Ebert and I are...
At odds?
We're at odds.
We're going to throw down.
It is not often, but, usually...
This is one of those
times. I trusted
times.
him, but this was one of those times. I did not agree with him at all on this one.
Yeah.
So, I guess I should work for the Chicago Sun-Times. Oh no, he was Chicago Sun-Times. Gene Siskel was Chicago Tribune.
Yes. So. Yes. Another feature that's missing from the Criterion version, the Blue Velvet theatrical trailer, and also 2 TV spots. I'm a big trailer junkie.
I'm a big trailer junkie too.
So I kind of missed that. And that seems like something that could have easily fit on the Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. Certainly more than I think the test chart. I would gladly sacrifice the test chart for a trailer.
That is a Criterion staple, though.
Oh, okay.
So
you're obviously the Criterion expert. I defer to your expertise in this.
From back in the day when Criterion was releasing its first releases on Laserdisc, color bars have always been on Criterion discs, and so that's
their thing.
Not having the test color bars on a Criterion DVD would be like going to Wheel of Fortune and not buying the Ceramic Dalmatian.
That's an interesting comparison.
I'm just thinking of something that I'm just trying to think of something that's unnecessary, but that diehard fans know about, and that you just have to do.
Yeah.
And they really are the Ceramic Dalmatian of the Criterion releases.
That's fine.
They're a tradition.
Well, maybe I'm blaspheming here, but I would gladly sacrifice that for a trailer.
I would. I'd pay a few extra dollars for a second disc, but
obviously the second disc would be preferable.
I would still want those color bar test features.
Okay, that's all right. That's cool. I respect that. Now there is the 10 minutes of deleted scenes, and I'm using this air quotes, deleted scenes, which weren't really deleted scenes. They were basically photographs that were reconstructions of deleted scenes that were thought lost at the time. Turns out, hey, guess what? They're not. Surprise.
Somebody cleaned out a closet and found some gems, baby.
Like, pull out the old archive box and dust that bad boy off, and what's in this? So obviously you could probably easily forget about this feature from this point on, because it's kind of pointless. Which would you rather have, like, the 58 minutes or whatever of deleted scenes, or 10 minutes of reconstruction through photographs? Yeah. Yeah. Use your thinking GIF for this one.
Exactly.
Blue Velvet Photo Gallery, you could probably pass along a lot of that. There was a cool Easter egg featurette about the Robin that was lost.
Right. The little animatronic Robin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was lost. So I kind of missed that. But again, we still have our DVDs, so you don't have to throw them away.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to get rid of it.
You don't have to sell it. You don't have to flip it on eBay unless you really want to. You can, but it would have been nice if everything had been brought forward.
I do wish that when there is an upgrade in a release, that it's like PBS donation. You get the tote bag, and you get the where it's everything from our previous levels you get plus everything here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work out that way, and there are some things. And again, you got to think of it like I could probably go on YouTube at any given moment and find trailers for Blue Velvet.
Exactly. I mean,
so
trailers in TV spots, yeah, you can understand, like, hey, you can go to YouTube. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going through special features on the disc, you don't want to have to go to YouTube just to watch the trailers.
Alexa, play the trailer for Blue Velvet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stuff like that. Now, of course, on the Criterion version, we also get just one disc, but hey, it's a Blu-ray, which is
it's a Blu-ray, so it's jammed.
Right. Yeah. Definite upgrade. You obviously get the brighter picture, spiffier digital restoration, the spiffier audio, like the big 5.1 DTS HD surround Mamma Jamma, as opposed, and you even get the original 2.0 soundtrack that's offered for those if you want kind of a retro vibe. Like I mentioned, you can't tab through the scenes, Shakes Fist, that's me, but you do get a spiffy booklet which has all kinds of nifty extra material in it and cool photographs.
Which is super awesome. It's got all kinds of quotes from everybody.
Yep.
They talk...
It's a nice little booklet.
Talk to Isabella Rossellini. They talk to Kyle MacLachlan. They talk to Brad Dourif. I mean, they talk to everybody in this. It's fantastic.
Yep. So we got that. And
sadly,
of course,
they do not talk to Dino De Laurentiis.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's no longer with us.
Right.
But
apparently he was Dino was quite the man back in the day.
Dino is the man and always will be the man.
Dino is the man.
The man.
The man. We did get, of course, the lost footage, deleted and extended scenes. The It's a Strange World, the filming of Blue Velvet 2019 documentary.
Which is amazing.
Which is good. And Blue Velvet Revisited, which is what's billed as a meditation.
Right.
On the making of the movie by this guy, this German filmmaker named Peter Bratz. But essentially what it is, it's, to boil it down in a nutshell, it's photographs plus Super 8 footage that he took while he was asked. He made an offer to Lynch to come. He had his idea for this project. Lynch brought him out during the filming of Blue Velvet, and this is basically the footage and the photographs that he took while he was there.
Yes, he documented the filming process of Blue Velvet.
And so they kind of wove a film out of it, a documentary film out of it, by putting in like linking, like dialogue and whatnot, audio, and some new like musical performers to kind of accompany it.
Right.
So we got that. We have what's called Room to Dream, which is Lynch's audio of reading a 2018 book that he co-wrote with...
Super cool. It's not really...
What's her name? I'm blanking on her name. Hold on.
It's not really Blue Velvet related, but it's a really cool thing to have.
Yeah, he co-authored with Christine McKenna, who's one of the people that's... she actually writes this excerpt that's featured in the booklet.
Yes. And it's sort of like a David Lynch audiobook, which, is always super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. We get a 2017 Angelo Badalamenti interview, which is essentially a continuation of the same interview that was on the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Yes. And I can sit and listen to Angelo talk all day long.
He's he's kind of an interesting guy. A cool cat to listen to, just talk about stories and whatnot.
Yeah, Angelo's fantastic.
Yeah, and then of course you got the very spiffy test chart featurette.
Like I said, for Criterion nerds, that's got to be there.
Okay.
That's a Criterion staple.
I get it. Okay. Yeah. It's a Criterion geek thing.
It is a Criterion geek thing, yes, which I am one. Okay. So.
All right, so I'm going to leave it up to you now. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the booklet, or do you want to talk the lost footage first?
Lost footage.
Lost footage. All right.
Footage.
Let me just flip ahead in my copious notes here.
Flip ahead in your copious notes, Charles.
All right. So, the lost footage. And this is 53 minutes and 16 seconds.
This is like an hour of more more Blue Velvet, and I think we should start. I mean, we can go through it piece by piece.
Well,
but we got to start.
Yes.
With Megan Mullally.
Okay.
Because that was probably my favorite thing about watching this, was the fact that Megan Mullally had been in this movie and then wasn't in this movie.
Now, is she Denise, or not Denise, but what's her name? Oh, shoot.
Louise,
that's it. That's Megan Mullally.
That is Megan Mullally.
I was wondering who that actress was.
For those of you who are not sure who that is,
Louise, Jeffrey's girlfriend.
That is Jeffrey's girlfriend, and Megan Mullally.
At college.
Yes, at college. Is, in real life, married to Nick Offerman.
Right. From Parks and Rec.
From Parks and Rec. And she played Karen on Will and Grace.
Right.
And she played Tammy, too, on Parks and Rec.
Right.
So,
and now they're doing sling commercials.
Now they're slingers.
They're slingers, right. Yes.
Yeah. Who wants to get it on? I'm naked. Probably my all-time favorite Megan Mullally moment.
They are a fun couple by all appearances. Yes.
And they have a show, like a stage show that they do that I think might be on Netflix, which is very entertaining. But yeah. So, and Megan Mullally, there's a when this release was coming out, she mentioned how she had been in this movie and her scenes were cut, and she has absolutely no memory of kissing Kyle MacLachlan, which makes me say, what? What is the matter with you?
So you just want to like bitch slap her? What are you talking about?
No, I just want to understand why she doesn't appreciate the things she's been given in life. Right. But yes, Megan Mullally is probably the most
she's
famous.
Got Nick Offerman, so you know.
Which is pretty damn awesome, I have to say. But yeah, Megan Mullally is the most interesting part about this, because it's always interesting. What do they say in Doctor Who? That when you see somebody before you know them, it's like they're not finished.
Right.
And that's how this feels, where you're looking at her, you're like, oh, she said this kind of looks familiar, and then she talks, and you're like, oh my god, that's Karen from Will and Grace.
Wow. See,
so
I thought she sounded familiar, but I could not place her for the life of me.
That's who she is.
I am so glad. See, I learned something today.
Excellent.
So see, it was worth doing this podcast, if only just to learn that.
If only just to learn that, yeah. All so right. Yeah, Megan Mullally is probably the most famous person that came out of those was deleted from Blue Velvet.
All right. So let's run these scenes down.
All right.
So first thing we get some blues guys trying to. This is a very weird thing to start this segment off, but it's Lynch, so you go with it.
This is what I was talking about, where there's a certain banality to David Lynch when you're watching these blues guys sing this very simplistic song, and there's a woman on the sofa just smoking. Yeah, and she's totally disinterested in anything that's going on. She's not wearing a shirt.
She's totally topless. Yes,
totally topless. And then
we think this is at a bar right before they go to Ben's.
Right before they go to Ben's, and
they're talking about the song is about a hound trying to chase a rabbit.
Mm-hmm. And then you see there's pool tables and other topless women just sort of dancing around.
Right.
And where have we seen that before, Charles?
I don't know. Maybe One-Eyed Jacks, maybe.
Were you angry at me for wearing something of yours? So, again, like I said, this is the embryonic seeds of Twin Peaks.
Exactly. It's a prototype, yeah.
And these girls are even dressed very similar with the short black skirts and the black tights and just jewelry but no top on. And but yeah, Frank
or it's kind of like in Fire Walk With Me.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about One-Eyed Jacks, but yeah, you're right. It's the Fire Walk With Me bar.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the fire. Yeah, it's the bar. Fire Walk With Me.
I am the Great Went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My high school sandwich. But
and then you feel like you have to take a shower after watching that scene.
You just hate yourself for watching all of it.
I need to be clean.
Well, one of the things they mention in the booklet, and I don't want to get too far off in the booklet, but somebody mentions in the booklet that like I said, the Dorothy Vallens scene where she shows up to Jeffrey's house naked. is not supposed to be arousing. It's supposed to be disturbing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Isabella Rossellini who said that, yeah.
And I think a lot of nudity you see in David Lynch is not supposed to arouse you. I think it's supposed to make you feel tense and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because
awkward.
when you come...
Yeah, awkward, right. Yeah.
When Frank brings Jeffrey into this bar and he starts beating up that one guy, and there's women there, they're still dancing or they're just looking on like, oh, Frank's here again. It just sort of adds to the tension for Jeffrey that he has no idea what's going on. He's in over his head. He has no idea what to do or where his eyes. Mm-hmm. And he should not, this is not a place he should be.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of times the nudity that David Lynch presents to you is not to arouse you, but to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And not in a way of like Laura Palmer's naked and you are worried about her. Like some of that is a little bit of it. And I think that's what it is with Laura, that, you know, we don't want Laura to be a prostitute. We want her to be okay. We want her to be happy. And not to say that Laura Palmer isn't beautiful mm-hmm. and that it could be arousing, but I don't think that's the point. It's like, you're supposed to feel protective of her.
Yeah.
And I think in this situation, you're supposed to see these, I'm assuming they're hookers.
Yes.
Because
just skanks.
But I'm assuming they're hookers, because I would think that skanks would keep their tops on unless somebody paid them to. But they're there for Jeffrey to look around and go, oh my God, I'm in over my head.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the themes in Lynch, it seems like. He seems to have this really interesting fascination with lost innocence. Or the innocence being exposed mm-hmm. to the seedy underbelly of things.
Exactly. Or what is it that Brad Dourif says? That innocence and the impossibility of it.
Yes.
That there's really no such thing as it. That as we...
Or it's impossible to stay innocent.
Right, because the world isn't, because in a town like Lumberton, no one's innocent. You know, there's, you know, even as
you like the way I came up with that, didn't you? Like that. It worked out pretty well.
You know, like Sandy is fairly innocent, but the more she grows up and the more she learns, the more she realizes that even though she's innocent, her surroundings aren't.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, Sandy gets exposed to some dark stuff too, obviously.
And Sandy has always sort of been exposed to some dark stuff in a sanitized way, with her father being a police detective, but still.
Yeah. So,
but right. So I think that's an interesting thing that Lynch does.
Yeah.
With nudity, and because even when Jeffrey first sees Dorothy Vallens getting undressed, he's like aroused but scared of that. Mm-hmm. And he's really realizing, like, oh shit, I'm in this woman's closet and now she's getting naked. What do I do?
Right.
You know, this has gone way further than he expected it to. He's not there to see her naked. He's there to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, he's basically trying to solve a mystery. Or just he's fascinated by the mysteries. As it turns out, that's mm-hmm. kind of his thing, as we learn, especially I think in this lost footage.
Right.
So one of the interesting things I thought was really fun about this scene, Raymond. So when they walk into the bar, Raymond goes over to the bartender, and what does he ask for?
What does he ask for, Charles?
A case of Pabst Blue
Ribbon!
Long neck, I might add.
Yep.
So apparently, this is where they get the beer to bring over to Ben's. Mm-hmm. So presumably this is pretty close, if not the same building. I don't know.
Right, it's close by, and you see them driving by this place. You just don't see them go in it. And so, and again, I would like to say that, you know, if you're a hipster and you drink PBR and you've not seen this movie, shame on you. That's all I'm saying.
It's right up the hipster alley. You're right.
Yeah, shame on you.
And then Frank ends up shoving a guy named Willard onto the pool table.
And some poor unsuspecting hooker has to get on there with him.
He tells him he's going to get a love letter when he least expects it. We all know about Frank's love letters, don't we?
They're not good. You don't want one.
No, you don't want one. And and then he takes Jeffrey to go meet a friend of his, which of course we know is Ben.
Ben.
So
yep.
Pretty good opening scene for that.
And again, this was one that I thought didn't necessarily need to be in the movie.
No, but it's interesting to watch.
It's very interesting to watch.
It kind of makes me want an extended cut.
Oh, yeah, it'd be interesting to see it integrated into the movie. But I think we're already tense enough for Jeffrey. We're already scared for him. Because I think this scene is helping build that tension.
Right.
And it's helping you show how psychotic Frank really is. But
it's not necessary.
We don't need that because we've got Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper is so amazing in this movie at doing this role that you need 5 minutes of him to realize that if you're around him, it's a terrifying experience. You don't need to build this tension. So I totally get why this one was cut.
All right, next scene. In a suburban home, a woman comes outside to tell a guy named Greg that Billy's waiting for his teddy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes out. Apparently we find out. It's in the next door neighbors
of the Beaumonts.
Yeah, they say Tom Beaumont. So we learn Jeffrey's father's first name, Tom.
So what we see is the little boy in his diaper walking around, and of course we've seen in the movie that when Jeffrey's father has his heart attack, he is watering the plants, and the dog is jumping in and trying to lick the water.
Right.
And the little baby.
Because the water hose is still streaming.
The water hose is still on, yeah. And the baby is intrigued by this too. So it's the dog and the baby just looking at this stream of water over this guy who has
just had a heart attack. So this is like the really tragic moment, but it's comical because of you have a baby and a dog there.
Mm-hmm. Reminiscent of The Godfather because of the
oranges. Yeah,
the oranges. The scene with the oranges.
That's a great comparison. Nicely done. I never even considered it, but you're absolutely right about that.
Reminiscent of, but not copying.
Exactly. Yeah. He didn't lift it.
No, he didn't lift it at all.
No. Next scene: the big dance party at college.
I love the big dance party at college because it's so like. They're so like not. And it's funny too.
It's kind of like the Peanuts kids in Charlie Brown Christmas dancing.
Exactly, they're just not really dancing all that much, and
just a little swaying back and forth, and like, oh hey, we're extras in a movie.
Hey, here we go, and you're not sure what the music is necessarily going to be probably when you're filming it.
Right. So I don't know how to dance to this.
And it was funny too because I was looking at it and it looks like a high school dance to me.
It does. At first I thought it was high school, and then of course we find out because of Jeffrey that it's college.
It's college, right. So, because, I know that I was kind of an antisocial, social anxiety, panic attack nerd in college, but I don't remember, like, dances in, like, common buildings at college.
No.
So,
I want to know where Jeffrey goes to college. We never get to find that out.
No, we never find that out. We know that he flies home.
Yeah. So it's
like
obviously
a little puddle jumper.
Yeah, so obviously it's somewhere far away from Lumberton, but
yeah.
So a guy goes looking for Jeffrey because his mom's on the phone.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we first meet his girlfriend Louise.
Yeah, Jeffrey's girlfriend Louise hasn't seen him. The guy talks to her really quick, and Louise, it turns out, is kind of pissed because Jeffrey's not with her.
He went to the bathroom like an hour ago, apparently.
Yeah. So turns out Jeffrey's in a boiler room somewhere nearby. Hiding in like the background under some stuff, behind some stuff, watching a guy trying to date rape a girl.
Okay, a couple of things here.
Yes.
Why is there a mattress in the boiler room? What kind of Freddy Krueger college is this?
I think it's more like a frat thing that maybe, hey, this is what the frat guys, this was the rape room.
That could very well be what happens. And it's interesting because it sets up a pattern for Jeffrey where he hides and he watches things that could arouse him or could make him uncomfortable.
Yeah. And
to Jeffrey's credit, he does yell, "Leave her alone," but it's not to Jeffrey's credit. It takes him a while.
Well, not only that, he only does it when he's kind of forced to leave because the guy outside that was looking for him calls out for him. He hears him outside, and so he's like, he gets up and he's like, I guess I should probably say something before I leave. Yeah. And so he's like, hey, don't
keep
do
your damn hands off her.
Exactly. Nice Back to the Future reference.
Thank you.
So essentially this kind of like teases the notion that, hey, yeah, Jeffrey's a bit of a voyeur. That's his thrill.
He's a bit of a voyeur. He's the type that will go looking for something seedy, I think.
Right. Yes.
Because did he follow those people in the boiler room, or was he there already doing something? That's the part we don't know.
That we don't know. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I say that maybe you almost want a deleted scene of this scene.
Right. You want even more of that.
Because like I want to learn. Like, would you like to know more? Yes, I would like to know more.
Yes, I would, exactly.
It's like to use a Starship Troopers reference.
Yep. But I
like
again, this is one that I'm glad that got deleted for a couple of reasons. First of all, it gives you a different image of Jeffrey Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
That he's always like this, or he's always been like this. But I personally like the idea that Jeffrey has to come home after his father has a heart attack, and he's bored. And that's why he does this, that he stumbles into things that he's not ready for and he shouldn't be seeing because he's bored and doesn't know what else to do.
Right.
I kind of prefer that narrative to that this is the type of guy Jeffrey is.
Yeah. I like the fact that he doesn't like it. The deleting this scene prevents him from being the guy that was willing to go watch a girl get raped.
Exactly. He was like almost willing to watch that, and it makes you not like Jeffrey a little bit.
Right.
And so I am glad this one came out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now he goes to answer the phone after finally telling rape guy to leave the girl alone.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And Louise, makes a comment. She's like, what stupid project are you into now?
See, that's another thing. That's another thing where he's obviously doing
he's done this before. Something
right.
Similar. Yes.
Yeah.
Or he just has weird interests.
Or he goes off by himself or goes into his own little world.
Yeah, and that's obviously bugs Louise.
It bugs Louise, yes.
Jeffrey's mom tells him about his dad. She wants him to come home. That's another thing that's interesting about these deleted scenes. I really now have an intense dislike for Jeffrey's mom.
Exactly.
These scenes really change your outlook on Jeffrey's mom.
I would agree with you 100% on that, because in the movie, he and his mom seem to have a strained, almost antagonistic relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with you and I, Charles, we can sort of relate to Jeffrey a little bit, being an only child of married parents. And if something happened to our fathers and we had to come home, I think we would act very, very differently towards our mothers.
Right.
And with this explains why he doesn't.
Yeah. And Jeffrey's mom comes out to be very controlling.
Mm-hmm.
And
very, very controlling.
And it's not a good look, basically.
No, it's not a good look, and it's something you never quite kind of get from what winds up in the movie. Like, is Jeffrey just here for a little bit, or is he home for good to run the store? Like, is he only going to run the store for like a year, or is he going to run the store till forever?
You're kind of like with Jeffrey, like you don't know how long he's supposed to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And so that makes you wonder, like, okay, so why is he getting involved with this? Why is he bothering getting involved with Sandy? Yeah. And even the people at the store say, it's good to have you here. We need you here right now. But you never quite know if he's going to.
Well, he seems more like he wants to be there without this deleted scene.
Yeah, and I think he likes
like he's willing to help out because of his father being sick. That's the vibe I get in the actual film.
Right, and I think he likes the hardware store people.
Yeah, so he seems like he knows them and he likes them. Yeah.
Yeah, he's happy to hang out there, but you don't really get the feeling, and you also don't see much of Jeffrey. Like, Jeffrey's always wearing the same clothes. I mean, he doesn't seem to have a lot of his things, so it doesn't seem like he would have just come back from college. So, but yeah, this gives you a really good look into why Jeffrey seems so lost when he's back home.
And he's looking for something.
He's looking for something, and why he seems to have such an antagonistic relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and we can talk about these in a minute, at the same time, I think these deleted scenes give a really good look into his sweet relationship with Aunt Barbara.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that next.
Yeah, we will. So, Jeffrey's mom wants him to come home for good. He's like, no. She says his father's condition is serious. There may not be money to keep him in college.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling him, like, oh, you can pack your things. Do pack your things now so you don't have to make a trip back.
Right.
Which is a very controlling thing.
And the fact that you find out later that she has not told the father.
Yes.
So,
So Jeffrey ends up the next scene saying goodbye to his college friends. He asks Louise to come with him to the airport, but she can't get out of class for some reason.
And I love you. Like, she's very non-committal with him.
He's way more into her than she is into him.
Obviously, as we find out in a couple of scenes after this. Yeah.
So she says she loves him. He says he'll call her, kisses her goodbye. His mom drives, and then we see his mom driving him home from the airport. Says his father has some kind of clot or tumor and may be in the ICU for 2 more weeks.
Right.
Aunt Barbara is in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, played by the fabulous Frances Bay.
Frances Bay, yes.
I was blanking her name there for a second.
Mrs. Chalfont.
Mrs. Chalfont or Mrs. Tremont, take your pick.
Take your pick, yep.
That's, dealer's choice on that one. And Barbara's talking about the airport not being crowded. And
you said it'd be crowded, but it wasn't crowded.
And oh my God, the A&P was torn down. Now, for those who don't know, A&P was a supermarket chain back in the day. So in a small town, the A&P supermarket going away is a big deal.
Big news.
Especially to Aunt Barbara. Jeffrey tells her, though, that was 5 years ago.
So we know that Aunt Barbara is probably living with Jeffrey's family because she's got a little bit of dementia.
Exactly.
I still don't know who Aunt Barbara is. I'm not sure.
She's an enigma, wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a mystery.
Wrapped in a vest. I don't know if she's Jeffrey's mother's sister or aunt, or Jeffrey's father's sister or aunt, or, how Aunt Barbara shows up. But yeah, Aunt Barbara is just, but that's a thing. That's a thing that happens in small towns and in close-knit families, that you have sick relatives and they come to live with you.
She was just this weird old lady that came out of a painting that was hanging in Jeffrey's bedroom one day.
That makes sense. I bet she's got a grandson walking around or jumping around for that matter.
You like that? Yeah.
I like that, yeah.
That's a very subtle Fire Walk With Me reference, if you catch that one. All right, so they pull into the driveway. Jeffrey goes upstairs to his old room, which is, especially now in this context, has to be really depressing because he doesn't want to be there.
With all of the stuff he thought he was leaving behind, and except I would have taken those badass lamps if I were Jeffrey.
Yeah, and he looks. The first thing he does, though, once he gets in there after he turns on the light, he looks through the blinds. So that right there is a big foreshadowing of what happens later on.
What has he been? And it sort of reminds me of Dale Cooper as a child. Looking at the neighbors and that sort of thing. So if there had been a tape recorder in there, that would have been Dale Cooper.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe he wouldn't have called Louise so much on the phone if he had just had a dictaphone.
Seriously.
Just saying. All right, so the next morning, Jeffrey's mom and Ann are having breakfast. His mom calls him down for breakfast. Jeffrey sits down and asks when visiting hours are, for his father.
Right.
His mom says, you're going to have to walk over because I need the car.
Right.
Thanks, Mom.
That as he's walking to the hospital, that's when he walks through the field, and that's when he finds the ear.
Exactly.
We sort of are able to get an idea of where these are falling into the film.
Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty easy. His mom tells him that his dad thinks he's just home for a visit, like you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Apparently, telling him would have been too much for him.
Yeah, too much.
Maybe not. Mrs. Beaumont.
Yeah, who knows? Exactly.
She tells Jeffrey to go along with it, but of course he's not really feeling it.
No, he's kind of ticked off about it, but and he's
justifiably so, in my opinion.
And he's a little bit antagonistic with his mother, but again, he's kind of joking with Aunt Barbara.
Yeah. His mom says, there's a chance you could go back to college one day.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And Aunt Barbara says, don't get depressed, and Jeffrey says he'll try not to get depressed.
Right.
So they seem to have a decent relationship at least.
Yeah, they do seem, and it seems like she's probably been living there since he was maybe about 9 or 10 or something.
And he feels comfortable picking on her a little bit about her dementia, but he's not cruel about it.
And it's probably right. He's not cruel about it, and she's probably been there when he's been she probably never took care of him. She probably never babysat him or something. Mm-hmm. So he's able to sort of be this sort of joking relationship with her a little bit more.
Yeah.
Than somebody who had been like his Ursat's mother or something.
Yeah.
If she'd been there since he was born or that kind of thing.
Yeah, she's probably been someone that's been around in his life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In his room, Jeffrey calls Louise. Turns out she was asked out already.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't take long, did it?
No.
He says he's not sure if he's coming back to college. He'll call her in a couple days.
Well, that's going to be an eventful couple of days for Louise.
Yep. And meanwhile, downstairs, Mom and Aunt Barbara are washing dishes while singing My Darling Clementine.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of adorable.
It is kind of adorable, yeah. So that's kind of makes me wonder if Aunt Barbara is related to his mother.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe.
Yeah.
I think they're sisters or something, because they're singing. They have a sisterly relationship, it seems like.
Right, they're sisters, or Aunt Barbara's actually the mom's aunt, but maybe a younger aunt sort of thing.
So like Jeffrey's great aunt or something, maybe.
Yeah, I can't quite tell, but it's
kind of hard to say.
That was the one thing that made me think that they're probably that's the family lineage for Aunt Barbara.
Yeah,
is that.
Next scene, Jeffrey shows up at the Williams home looking for Detective Williams, meets Mrs. Williams.
And eats Duncan Hines chocolate cake.
I totally wrote that down. I did. She asked him to stay for coffee. In the kitchen, she says she's sorry about Jeffrey's dad, but knows his mom from church. So that's how they know each other.
Small freaking town,
and it makes perfect sense. And this is where he gets the Duncan Hines. I got the chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake.
Yeah.
And he's just sort of sitting there, and that's also another very Midwestern
damn good cake.
Thing. You don't invite people in your house and not offer them food when you live in the Midwest.
Especially, especially if you're a mom.
Especially if you're a mom, that's what you do.
That's what you do. You've totally stuff your friends. If you have kids, you totally stuff their faces.
Seriously, one of my
closest
friends, Stephen, he and I were roommates for about 3 years in college, and we were friends in high school, and we always had this joke that any given time at his house, there's a baked good on the counter. His mom has made some sort of pie or coffee cake or strudel or something. There's always something to have with coffee at her house.
Yep.
So, Hope Lang, who is always awesome. I love Hope Lang.
Yeah. If you remember her from The Ghost of Mrs. Muir.
Or, she gives an incredibly chilling performance in Death Wish.
Right.
Which she does a fabulous job at. I can't watch her death scene. I can't watch
Really?
it.
That powerful?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just terrible. Yeah, because she's killed during a rape.
Oh.
So yeah.
Have you seen? I have not seen the original. No.
Okay, it's extremely good, and it has a fantastic soundtrack by Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
And there's tons of interesting people in it. Like when they were just first starting out, like Jeff Goldblum is there, and Christopher Guest is in it, that kind of stuff. And making a brief cameo as the supermarket checkout girl is Maria from Sesame Street.
Really? That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Sonia Mangano. Yeah, she's in Death Wish.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
But yeah, it's always funny when there's like old Sesame Street people making cameos and like normal stuff. Like I was watching a repeat of Friends the other day, and Olivia from Sesame Street is in it.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, out of everybody on this show, she's the one I would have wanted to meet the most. It would be Olivia from Sesame
That's
Street.
funny.
Yeah, but yeah, Hope Lang is just fantastic. And then, of course, Sandy comes home, and then here's this.
Yeah.
She's with Mike.
Yeah,
and,
she's got
Mike,
like big bonehead boyfriend Mike.
Mr. Bonehead boyfriends. Yeah.
Yeah. So they come in the kitchen. That's where they get introduced.
And Mike is funny because Mike's like immediately competitive.
Right.
With Jeffrey, he's he's just immediately like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. All confrontational.
And, you just kind of immediately hate Mike. You just immediately don't like him.
He's got a very doucheable, punchable face.
He is 100% Mr. Bonehead boyfriend, that's for sure.
Exactly. So Sandy and Mike leave. Detective Williams comes in. Jeffrey starts to talk about what the case and whatnot, and then
he's like, no,
go to the secret room. So they go to his office, and they shut the door. Mm-hmm. So next scene.
Slam this door. Lock it.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Gind looks like some kind of general physician for Jeffrey's mom. Says she's under stress and shouldn't overdo it. He's kind of examining her. So
he gives her some sort of injection.
Like back in the days when doctors actually made house calls.
When they made house, and what did he inject her with? Phenobarbital? Because he says this will last you the week. Like, what the hell is going on here? And even Jeffrey.
Knowing Lynch, it's probably haloperidol.
Yeah, that's very true. But but even Jeffrey's like, what the hell's going on? My whole family is sick.
Yeah, that was a good line. I like that line.
This is my favorite Aunt Barbara moment because she says, "I'm not sick," and then he just points to his head.
Yes, like
basically, just basically saying, "Yeah, but you're nuts, Aunt Barbara," and she just kind of gets like a little bit pissed off, and then just says, "See if you stay in my will."
Yeah, that was good. That was great. That was a great scene.
I think, like I said, I think the Aunt Barbara parts are the parts that I miss because I love their relationship. I think
they kind of try to needle each other.
Right, and the relationship he has with Aunt Barbara makes you feel a little less sorry for Jeffrey that he's home, because when you see him visit his father, you can tell from his father's eyes that the father hates that he's sick, hates that this happened to him, but he also hates the fact, again, very much like The Godfather, he doesn't want Jeffrey to have to come home from college. Like in The Godfather when Vito Corleone is home from the hospital and he knows that Michael's going to get wrapped into this, and he just is sitting there and he just says, "I never wanted this for you." And you get that impression that that's how Jeffrey's father is with Jeffrey, that he doesn't want Jeffrey to have to be home. And so you get this feeling that Jeffrey might have a little better relationship with his father than his mother. Mm-hmm. But you're just like, oh, this poor kid, he's home alone with his mom and this crazy aunt. But it's like, no, he's liking being with the aunt. That's not, so you feel a little less bad for him about his situation, that he does have some family that he is not antagonistic with.
Yeah, and this is kind of why I kind of would like to see an extended cut, because these scenes allow us to actually get to know Aunt Barbara as a character.
Yeah, and I think
which we don't really get from the final cut. Exactly,
and I like Aunt Barbara as a character. I think she's very funny, and Frances Bay, can't say enough good things about Frances Bay. But yeah, you really sort of feel sorry for Jeffrey. Like, God, this sucks.
Yeah,
and because Jeffrey's father, throughout the rest of the movie, Jeffrey's father doesn't die. He's still around by the end of the movie, and at the end of the movie where you're kind of seeing what happens to everybody, it could have been very possible that Jeffrey could have gone back to college.
Right.
So you really don't know what's going on with Jeffrey, but like I said, you just feel a little better for him that he's got this. Does
his dad rebound and then everything's all good? And...
Yeah, you feel a little better for Jeffrey that he has this sweet relationship with her.
Yeah. So Jeffrey borrows the car and takes Sandy driving. And this is where he tells her the plan.
The plan, and it's not her usual Friday night.
I thought that was a good line. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
And this is where we see them pull into the Slow Club. And they go inside.
I think this scene is hilarious, but it is definitely not necessary.
No. And so once they're inside, they sit down at a table and order 2 Heinekens.
And again, I have to ask, what is with David Lynch and his fascination with underage drinking? Like, how does she get into this bar? I mean, Sandy is still in high. I mean, she could be like Laura Palmer and Audrey Horne, and she could be 18.
Unless it's because she's a hot girl, we're going to look the other way.
But you would think this is a small town, and her dad is a cop.
You would think.
You would think that would be
right.
Because my mother grew up in a small town where her dad was a cop.
Unless Sandy is the secret rebel, the quiet rebel, undercover rebel.
Not just that. And it wasn't just that my grandfather was a cop. Mm-hmm. My great-grandfather was the sheriff. So, if my mom had wanted to do anything like this, it would not have been possible. She wouldn't have been able to do it. Yeah. So I just find it amusing.
Yeah. So on stage, the first act is a dog eating from a food bowl with a spotlight, being shown down on the stage, as like there's this kind of like quiet snare drum version of America the Beautiful playing.
Right, and you're almost expecting there to be like a drum roll and the dog's going to do something amazing.
Yeah, you're waiting. You keep waiting for something to happen and it doesn't.
And oddly, nothing happens, but this dog gets a ridiculously large amount of applause. Yeah. It's a surprising amount of applause for how little happens.
Yeah, obviously, entertainment is very hard to come by in Lumberton. So the server comes over, brings the beers. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey asks the server when Dorothy comes on. Server's a little twitchy, though. He's like, I don't know. I gotta go.
That's the thing, because I'll bet you everybody else that comes into this bar asking about Dorothy Vallens is up to no damn good.
Probably. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
So they pour their beers. Jeffrey toasts to an interesting experience.
I'll drink to that, because that's definitely what they have tonight.
And time passes, and then we get a quartet lounge act performing.
Which is fascinating, because it's a band.
I was so glad this scene was cut.
Yeah, this scene was funny for like a minute.
And it dragged, and like a lot of, old Lynch watching, focusing on old waiters walking slowly across floors, shuffling. Mm-hmm. It drags on a little, or sweeping floors.
I was going to say, I would have rather watched sweeping after a while, but but I think it's an interesting concept for an act, though. I thought that was kind of funny, where you have a band, you have a shitty comedian, mm-hmm. and you have a belly dancer.
Yes.
So it's kind of a fascinating combination, but it's not one that I want to watch for as long as David Lynch made me watch it.
Pretty much. So we have the singer is this old guy named Bob, and we know Bob because of it's right there on the speaker or something. Yep. So we have a Mike and we have a Bob.
A Mike and a Bob.
Obviously, he really likes those names.
They're perfect names, though. I mean, they're nondescript. Everybody knows a Mike and a Bob.
Yep.
So
makes sense. So he's singing "Beautiful Dreamer," while a younger guy tells really bad jokes alongside an old drummer and the belly dancer that you talked about. Mm-hmm. And here's the freaky part, if that wasn't freaky enough. So behind them are these 2 giant cardboard silhouettes of a chicken and an egg.
Uh-huh.
And they move back and forth under these giant numbers 1 and 2.
Which came first?
Right, exactly. That's the whole gist. But it doesn't just shuffle like once or twice.
It's constant.
It's constantly moving back and forth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell am I looking at here, David Lynch?
Yeah, but all right. I'm guessing that had to be one of his dreams or something.
Who knows?
All right, so next scene, Jeffrey comes home. Mom is waiting for him in the darkened living room.
Mm-hmm.
Who actually sits in a darkened living room waiting for somebody? Like, with the lights off? Creepy people, that's who.
Creepy people, yeah, exactly. And this was something that I remember my friends experiencing in college. Mm-hmm. I lived at home for college. I grew up in Worthington, which is, very close to Ohio State, and that's where I went to college. And my parents kind of let me grow up. And so I would, I had a job after college, and I would stay at, the question wasn't, what time are you coming home? The question was, are you coming home tonight? Because my mom didn't want to think that I'd be home at some point and then worry if I wasn't. Which, personally, I think is just common courtesy with anyone that you live with, that you'd want to let them know that kind of thing.
Right.
So there was that, but then I would have friends that would come home from college to curfews and things like that. And it's like, and Jeffrey is, she's lucky he's there in the first place. And now she's treating him like a child. She's asking him to be the man of the house, but treating him like a child. So again, you're getting a little bit more of a glimpse as to what the deal is with their antagonistic relationship.
Yeah, because, she's lecturing him here. She's lecturing him about staying up late. She guilt trips him about not being able to call his father because he's home so late.
Yeah, and exactly.
She notices that punctured face because, this is where Dorothy kind of poked him with the knife. The knife, right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I will say that when you're wondering, like, okay, where's my son in my car?
Yeah. And
your son comes home and he's been stabbed in the face.
Yeah, and that's your first reaction is to bitch at him about, like, staying up late.
That's a little, I will admit that that's a little concerning, but that's kind of not how she plays it off. The fact that he's bleeding is kind of secondary to her.
Yeah, like I said, these scenes really make me not like Jeffrey's mom at all.
Exactly. Yeah, you really don't like her.
Yeah. Next morning, Jeffrey calls Louise again. Turns out,
I love this scene.
She tells him she got married.
She got married.
And he wishes her good luck. And he does this really great line.
This line is fantastic.
You want to tell it while I'm trying to breathe here?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Louise, I wish you a lot of luck. If it doesn't work out, I think you should go into comedy.
That is perfection.
Which I think is hilarious.
I died laughing at that line.
And
why was that cut?
I have had situations in my life where I wish I had that line to pull out of my arsenal.
Yes.
And it's just so perfect.
It was such a great response to that situation.
Yeah, and because it's Megan Mullally, you're wondering, maybe that marriage didn't work out because she did in fact
go into comedy. Nice.
Yeah. So I love that line. That line was fantastic.
Yeah, that one probably should have kept in, I think.
And again, you have your main character, your protagonist, really shitty love life.
Yeah. Which is, well, and it's done because obviously this is what kind of drives him towards Sandy.
Right. He's now a little bit freed up to be with Sandy.
Yes.
Sandy's got to tell Mike it's over, but
yeah,
he's a little bit free. He doesn't have a girlfriend now. He doesn't have any obligations, so he's able to pursue her a little bit better. And as we see in the next scene, I don't know if the parents like Mike all that much.
No. Well, the scene before that, though, Jeffrey tells Aunt Barbara that he's going to Sandy's house.
Oh, yes. I forgot about
she warns him that there's termites in the house.
This termite subplot is adorable.
And he tells her, like, Aunt Barbara, don't worry. And then he kisses her goodbye. Mm-hmm. But there's a payoff for this.
There is a total payoff for this. Yeah, I love this termite subplot.
All right, so now, this is the big one that you were talking about. Jeffrey joins the Williams family and Mike for dinner.
Awkward.
Slightly awkward. So when John asks Jeffrey if he plays sports, Mike says that Jeffrey would be a good runner because, hey,
you're not built for football.
You don't have the build for football. And then he's like, I need to take my supplemental vitamins.
Steroids!
Yeah, and Sandy offers to go get Heineken's because, hey, apparently they booze it up pretty regularly in the Williams household.
Hey, but it's like, but what I think is cute about that is that probably what happened is Sandy and her mom were probably shopping for this dinner,
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, Jeffrey likes Heineken. Let's buy some Heineken. So it's kind of a cute thing, I think, between the two of them. And so
and John says he likes Bud, though. He's Bud guy.
King of beers.
King of beers.
So, but there's a scene where at the beginning where Mike is talking about like last week's football game.
Yes.
And he's like really sort of tooting the horn of everybody on the team, and then the dad's like, "Then why didn't anybody catch anything last week?" Like, the dad's being really kind of antagonistic with Mike, because you can sort of tell. And I think
he thinks Jeffrey's be a better match for his daughter than.
I think he likes Jeffrey a little bit better, because Mike is kind of an ass, and
because everybody's like they're drinking beer, and Mike's like, I want a glass of water.
I want a glass of water with my your steroids. And I know that he's taking steroids, but they just don't know what to say about it, and so, Mike's a jerk.
The one good thing about our internet connection right now is that it kind of gives you this cool Max Headroom stuttering kind of vibe to you.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you gotta hear some. You have to hear some of this audio.
Where's my Coca-Cola?
Is that my tease, mate? I can't stand tea. That's an Art of Noise classic, if you're wondering. Aunt Barbara, meanwhile, is busy pounding the walls with her cane and finds a termite.
Dun, dun, dun. Out comes a termite. Dun, 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 dun.
So it's like, see, I was right.
He's like, I'm not crazy. There's termites in this damn place.
No. So points to Aunt Barbara, I guess. Jeffrey, Sandy, and Mike, meanwhile, go hang out in the living room, watching a TV show of women in ballroom gowns and tiaras towing living room chairs in a race.
I love this.
In a scene that only David Lynch could come up. Well, maybe Grant Morrison could come up with. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, and even Mike is like, "Why do we have to watch this?"
Yeah,
and then they turn on something different. He's like, "Why do we have to watch anything?" It's like, Mike, just go home.
Yeah. Basically, he's just. Yeah, everything they want to do, and it's kind of staged in such a way. It's like it's blatantly obvious that Sandy would be much better off with Jeffrey than Mike.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like Stevie Wonder could see this happening.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. So Sandy's mom brings in some ice cream that Jeffrey and Sandy said yes to, but of course Mike said no, didn't want his ice cream.
Who doesn't want pie and ice cream? I don't trust anybody that doesn't want pie and ice cream.
Here's a funny Twin Peaks-ish moment. She asked Jeffrey how he takes his coffee. Black. I kept waiting for it. Black as midnight on a moonless night.
Black as midnight on a moonless night. Yep.
Jeffrey eats the ice cream. Mike leaves the room. Sandy, while he's out, Sandy asks Jeffrey what he found out. Jeffrey says there are strange people involved, but they should discuss it somewhere else.
Somewhere else. No, don't bring Mike in on this.
Like, keep it on the down low.
Yeah.
Sandy's mom returns with coffee. Mike asks Sandy if they could talk outside.
Oh, jeez.
So apparently, Mike is not taking Jeffrey's presence very well. While this is going on, John invites Jeffrey downstairs back to the secret office, to look at pictures of the vacant lot where the ear was found.
Right, and it's like, it's bizarre. He's like, "Hey, Jeffrey, I thought you might like looking at this creepy ass photos of."
You seem to be kind of into this, and this is kind of our bonding thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of bizarre because they're both like appreciating these crime photos for the photography of it all.
Right.
And it's like,
you expected Jeffrey to go like, "Yeah, I really like the composition in this one."
Yeah, it's just bizarre how they're like, "Oh yeah, this is really beautiful," but we see that in the same field they also found a piece of blue velvet.
Yeah, Jeffrey's like, he doesn't want to tip his hand though. He's like, I'm just curious about this.
Right. He's like, "Oh, what's that picture there?
Does that mean something to you there, Jeffrey?"
No, just wondering.
Yeah.
Just a little bit curious as to what's going on there.
Yeah, Sandy comes in. She asks to borrow the car. A lot of car borrowing in this movie.
Hey, they're kids.
I know. It makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't have their own cars. She wants to buy Jeffrey a Dairy Queen, which is such a Midwestern phrase.
Such a Midwestern phrase, yes.
You know, like, you didn't just go out to Dairy Queen.
Right.
Like,
you're going to get a Dairy Queen.
I'm going to get a, yeah, you want me to get you a Dairy Queen? Like,
the
Dairy Queen, like, the store, you know, the restaurant was named Dairy Queen.
Mm-hmm. But think about what it has.
Yes.
One flavor of ice cream. There's, you know, and it is, for those of you who are not Midwestern.
Soft serve, yes.
It is the greatest ice cream on the planet. I've said to people before that, you know, when you go out to dinner and everybody asks if you want to get dessert at the restaurant,
right,
99% of the time I would rather just go to Dairy Queen. Like, seriously. A Dairy Queen is fantastic.
Right.
But they dress up the soft serve a little bit, but they've got one flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
It's vanilla soft serve, and you can have, you know, a coating on it, or
sprinkles.
You can get it a sundae or whatever, but it's vanilla ice cream.
They put like maybe some, you know, like chocolate or something on top.
Yeah,
chocolate syrup swirl or something.
You could get the dip, or you can get a sundae, or you can get a banana split, or what was that called? The Double Dream. That was the greatest sundae of all time. The peanut butter parfait. Damn it, I want Dairy Queen now. Damn it, David Lynch.
Hey, you know, there's one out here in Hilliard, just down the road.
If I thought
over there off of you know, the was it
near old downtown Hilliard.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Off of not Leap Road, but the adjacent road. I forget what it is.
Yeah, I forget what it is too. But I've got one in Grandview. I'm close to one. But it's like, if I thought I was craving donuts when we watched Twin Peaks, oh my god.
Yeah, we gotta
craving Dairy Queen now.
Yeah, we need to like get a Dairy Queen. All right.
Yeah, we gotta go. Do you really want a Dairy Queen? No, I'm full.
Yeah, that was a good one. So they leave. They return to Jeffrey's home. Jeffrey wants to kiss Sandy goodnight.
But he better not.
He better not. So he gets out of the car, goes inside. He's not a dick about it. He goes inside, finds a note from his mom, hoping he enjoyed himself, and I'm sure it was written with like dripping sarcasm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hope you had a nice time with your whore.
Yeah, on Whore Island.
You look like a blueberry.
Yeah. But there's a PS from Aunt Barbara, and I love this. So she says she found 2 termites.
And they are taped to the note.
They're circled. And yeah, they're put on the note and they're circled. Like,
they're circled on the note. Like, see, I told you.
I told you, mother effer, there were termites in these buildings.
Damn it, I may be crazy, but I'm not crazy about this termite thing. Yeah, love that.
I love that. I wish they would have kept that. So Jeffrey, in the next scene, calls Dorothy. Frank's listening in, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey finally says hello, and then Frank says, "Speak to me, effer."
Yeah, and then Jeffrey throws the phone down like it's made out of fire.
Jeffrey is everyone at this moment because he panics, hangs up, and then he gets pissed at himself for being so stupid.
Exactly. Like,
that is the most real moment. I totally identify with that scene.
Yeah.
Jeffrey follows Frank in the next scene to Dorothy's apartment building, and here's where things get really interesting. He waits in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Then Frank eventually comes back out, gets back in his car, and drives off. Jeffrey goes inside to see Dorothy now that Frank's gone, but has to hide in the closet because the yellow man comes in and threatens Dorothy.
But he's the maroon man.
Oh, that's right. He's the maroon man at this point. But it's
in
the
this
same,
scene, he's not wearing
guy.
It's the same guy. Yeah, exactly. But he's kind of making a pass at her and threatening her and just trying to throw his weight around a little bit.
Yeah.
And
she forces him to leave, though.
She forced him to leave, and then when Jeffrey came over, she was happy to see him and was like, "I looked for you in the closet tonight. I like you."
Mm-hmm.
So there's this sort of weird, forbidden thing going on with Jeffrey.
Their secret closet romance.
Their secret closet naked knife romance.
It does that too. So Dorothy escorts Jeffrey outside to the rooftop.
This is a horrible scene. I mean, it's very powerful and depressing.
But you can see why they cut it, yeah.
Yeah.
So thunder cracks in the distance, and we hear an instrumental of Mysteries of Love. Dorothy decides, okay, I want to see how far this is. So she takes her shoe off and drops it over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And then she looks like, of course, she wants to jump.
A couple of times. And Jeffrey doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say to get her to back off the wall. He just knows to grab her the couple of times she tries.
Yeah, she actually does try to jump, but he grabs her. And then he pulls her back from the edge, and then they start making out on the rooftop.
Right. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to say. And I think this is probably what David Lynch was trying to convey in the scene where he's watching the almost date rape.
Right.
Where he doesn't know what to do. You know, Jeffrey knows that he wants to stop people from doing the wrong thing, but he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's how he feels about Dorothy, is that she is not somebody he should necessarily be messed up with. She's this older woman with a child that's kidnapped. She's married. She's a lounge singer. Not that there's anything wrong with being a lounge singer. It's just that it's not his world.
He's way out of his league with her.
He's out of his league with her.
And out of his depth, I think.
Definitely out of his depth, for sure. Dorothy is not a relationship he could have.
No.
He's not, like I said, unfortunately we know from having seen the movie that her husband is murdered.
Right.
But, she's also a mom of this little boy. And so he's not, he's got enough to deal with his family. He's probably not going to be like, stepdad boyfriend.
Exactly.
In some sort of idyllic Dorothy Vallens situation. So this is not something that's going to happen. So he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what to do. And he's not equipped to handle her problems. He's trying to help her with Frank because, as he says, why are there people like Frank? He hates the fact that Frank is even in his town, let alone bothering Dorothy.
Right.
But he's just like
he just needs to stay in his lane.
Like he is in that. Yeah, he's like how he is in the closet, or like he is in that boiler room. He is just frozen. He has no idea what to do. He knows he doesn't like this. He knows he wants it to be different. He knows he wants to help, but he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah. Credits of the uncredited actors in the film roll, followed by a woman saying, "It's about time you came." I'm not sure what that was about.
Was it just
a scene of them coming back inside, or they meet this woman? I was a little fuzzy on this.
It's another deleted scene. It's somebody else who lives in Dorothy Vallens' apartment.
Okay.
And she sees that he's the exterminator.
Oh, okay. I got it.
So she's basically... So apparently Dorothy Vallens' apartment does in fact have bugs.
Okay.
So that's why no one is sort of suspicious of him being there.
Because they're like, finally they got the exterminator.
Finally, there's an exterminator here to take care of this bug problem.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what happened with that.
All right, that's good. I'm glad you clarified that for me. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, and then we get followed by outtakes, which
we didn't know we were going to get, which was really kind of nice.
Yeah, so there's actually some outtakes on this. So that's where they're located, if you're wondering where the outtakes are.
That's where they are.
So that was kind of cool. All right, so I'm just looking at the clock here. So do you want to just go through the booklet, or do you want to take a break and we pick things up in a part 2?
I think we should pick things up in a part 2 because, Sheriff, we got a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about. So
I do want to talk about the documentary, and I do want to talk about some of the highlights of the booklet.
Because we still got to go through Blue Velvet Revisited.
Mm-hmm.
The meditation.
Yes, the meditation.
And the various interviews and whatnot. So
I definitely want to spend some time on the documentary because there are some very interesting things about the special effects that are brought up. So I definitely want to discuss that.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool things about there's some really interesting stuff about the makeup and the props and this, and then some of the things that various items used that probably are illegal. I'm guessing. Probably
are illegal. But I'll just go ahead and say it so we can marinate on it.
We'll do a little tease.
Yeah. This is quite possibly the first time a silicone model was used as a special effect in film.
That was one of the things I made note of. Yep.
They can't find any record because before silicone, something like that ear would have been made out of rubber. And as we know from the things that are made out of rubber, rubber doesn't last. For example, Jabba the Hutt was made out of rubber.
Right.
Which is why the only thing that's left out of Jabba the Hutt is his eyes. Because rubber is an organic material.
It degrades, yeah.
It degrades, it biodegrades. And so, but silicone won't. So that's why we still have these ears.
Yes, which is great.
Which is very, very interesting. But yeah, the fact that this...
Mr. Ear.
Mr. Ear. I love that Mr. Ear.
He has a cute
name. I want to spend some time on Mr. Ear. But the fact that this movie is this sort of inadvertent pioneer of special effects,
yeah,
I think is extremely cool because, like I was saying at the beginning when we started talking, you don't think of movies like this as special effects movies, but they really are.
Right. Well, you know, especially when you're doing, innovative stuff,
mm-hmm.
and you're considering the budget they had, and that's one of the things we'll probably talk about, is that they had very little budget.
This movie had to be made for like $8.
So that necessity is the mother of invention. So they had to be creative. They had to come up with new things, and just to get by.
Right.
And as a result, they innovated. And so we get things like silicone ears.
Silicone is the standard now because, like I said, unlike rubber, it will or foam rubber or anything like that, it does not biodegrade. Yeah. So you're not going to have a problem. Like there's a story about the rubber masks from Planet of the Apes.
Right.
It was too hard to get the masks off and then back on for meal breaks, so they would just eat like the monkeys that they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can see all kinds of photographs about that, yeah.
And right, well, French dressing ate through those masks.
Oh, I did not know that.
So yeah, so anybody who was eating French dressing on their salad, they would have to have a touch up because it started to eat away at their masks. But silicone, you don't have that. So this is very fascinating that we have Blue Velvet to thank.
Yeah, of all films.
Of all you would think it would have been, Jurassic Park or something.
Yeah,
some
big special effects heavy movie. Return of the Jedi or something.
Yeah, some spectacle. But yeah, like I said, the only thing that's left of Jabba the Hutt are his eyeballs.
Yeah,
interesting. And he's gone. He has rotted away over the last 36 years. So, but yeah, I thought that was an extremely interesting little bit of trivia because they can't find anything.
Should have took Mike's vitamins.
Yeah, seriously. You gotta have I gotta supplement. But yeah, because they can't find any previous documented use of silicone in models until this movie.
Yeah.
So,
and that's one of the things we're going to talk about next time.
Yes. Next time.
Yeah. So we're going to we're kind of break here. So apologies, but obviously we're running long, and because hey, it's us, and we kind of digress just a little bit.
This is what we do.
All right. So. We could probably, we kind of I guess next time on Ghost, we'll obviously go to talk part 2, and we'll talk about that, and we'll do that, and kind of obviously we're going to talk, the interviews. We'll talk about the booklet. We'll talk about all the new, the interviews, the Blue Velvet Revisited meditation. So lots left to talk about. We'll even talk about the test chart. How's that?
We can talk about the test chart. But right. That's the thing. We talk so much about this because we love it, and there's so much on here, which is great.
Exactly. So if you've got any thoughts about Blue Velvet, and or if you just happen to get this new Criterion Collection,
which you totally should.
Which definitely we both recommend it.
Yes.
We'll just leave it right there. Obviously we don't have to wait to recommend that. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach us on Twitter. Yeah, ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com, or on the Twitter at ghostwoodcast, or on Facebook at Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks Podcast. Would love to hear from you. I'd love to get your thoughts on Blue Velvet. And one of the David Lynch's seminal films, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And so, please let us know. Especially if got any thoughts about its connection to Twin Peaks or what have you. Obviously, a lot of Kyle MacLachlan, Laura Dern, Jack Nance, lots of good Twin Peaks connections there too. Xan, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
I am on the Instagram and on the Twitters as Udinax19. What about you, Charles?
Well, of course, I'm at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook at Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Ghostwood, any kind of David Lynch stuff that comes along. And news my other podcasts they do for Southgate Media Group, including Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, which Xan is kind enough to have been on. Yeah, the award-winning. Thank you for that. And Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where we just kind of closed up shop a little bit because we just finished with our Doom Patrol Season 1 review episode. But Jesse and I were looking for something to talk about. We decided we're reopening the Fandom Zone podcast. We got permission from Karen, because I wanted to run it past her and make sure she was okay with it, because she's not able to record with us these days, because sadly she has MS and is going through all kinds of, obviously that's a very horrible condition. And
that's an insidious condition, and my heart is with her for sure.
Exactly. Obviously our thoughts are with her. She's been having some issues with medication and whatnot.
Ugh, that's the hardest.
But she was okay with us because, she's obviously big friends with both of us and trusts Jesse to kind of help fill in as co-host until she gets back on track. So we're reviewing Krypton Season 2 on Sci-Fi.
Oh, cool. Yeah, which looks like it's really good.
It is good. It is good. The first episode just aired last night. And can't wait to talk about that with Jesse. And we're both big Superman geeks. So this is a lot of fun.
Nice.
And we're going to be talking about that. We've already recorded our episode 153, which is our kind of review of Krypton Season 1 as kind of a refresher before we start talking about the Season 2 stuff. So if you want to check that out, that's already up on Southgate Media Group, so you can check that out as well. Would definitely appreciate it. And other than that, Xan, I think that's it for now. So,
all right.
We'll talk more Blue Velvet, and maybe you have a little. Maybe you could talk a little bit about my upcoming appearance at Origins on Saturday, because I'm going to be at the State of Doctor Who panel.
Yeah, exactly.
So that could be good for a laugh, right?
That makes me tempted to go to Origins. There's a lot going on this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to make it, so
that's okay. That's okay. I won't take it personally.
No, don't take it for sure. Don't take it personally.
Yeah. Maybe somebody will YouTube it or something and put it up there.
Why don't you talk about what's going to happen the day after you do your panel?
Okay, the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Yours truly turns 50 years old.
Somebody's birthday.
Yeah, on June 16th, 1969 I was born. 2019 is the 50th anniversary of said event.
Said event, yes. So happy birthday, Charles.
It's me and the moon landing, 50 years old this year.
Oh, you and Stan. Did Stanley Kubrick fake your birth too?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I want to punch people in the throat every time they say stuff like that. I want to be like Buzz Aldrin and punch people out.
Just punch somebody right in the face. Oh my God! If you have not seen that, go to YouTube and just type in Buzz Aldrin punch, and it'll come up, and it's amazing. Then
that cemented my Buzz Aldrin respect for the rest of my life,
for the rest of eternity, right? And then when you're done with that, and you want to see somebody else deserve it, just go back to YouTube and type in Danzig gets punched and watch somebody punch Danzig in the face to the point where he goes down cold. He goes out cold. It's fantastic.
You like seeing guys get cold cocked. Boom.
Well, I hate Danzig. Danzig is such a douchebag.
Yeah. He totally has it coming.
That watching him get punched out cold and just fall on the ground, it's just, when I'm having a bad day, I love watching Danzig get punched in the face.
One thing I did want to share before we sign off, while I was watching through all the documentary stuff with Lynch back in the 80s, I was very inspired to pull these out. My 1980s Ray-Bans that
Whoa, look at that.
Just like David Lynch has in the documentaries.
That is impressive.
Is that slick? Yeah. These are my old school 80s Ray-Bans that I still have.
I love that you still have them. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I couldn't resist dragging those out because they brought back such memories.
That's fantastic. I love that you still have them because I was a kid in the 80s, so I only had Ray-Ban knockoffs, so good for you.
No, these are the real deals. These are legits.
Nice.
So, but I just wanted to share that because it just kind of inspired me to dig those out. All right. So,
I think you need to post a photo of those on our various internet outlets.
Yeah. So everybody, come on back. Blue Velvet Part 2. Criterion Velvet Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next time right here on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Bye, everybody.
Bye.